Okay, here are the deleted scenes. There's not that many of them, actually, although there was an extended opening of the film, which involved them, as you see here, playing chess together, the captain and Capa, and it was intercut with them, a few other scenes, bits and pieces you'll see in them waking up, and basically it was an introduction to the crew and their day, really, what their days consisted of, which was boredom and challenges, really. Check. At this point, Capa was meant to be... he was, I think... In fact, originally, I think Capa was teaching Mace how to play chess, but it became the captain, eventually, as an introduction to him and Capa beating him. I think I mentioned earlier, we tried to speed up the film, the opening of the film, and I think that was the main reason that we cut this, was for time and speed reasons, really, which in a way become the same thing. We just wanted to actually get people into the film a little bit quicker, even though, as it is, the introduction of these kind of films is quite kind of even, really, to suggest eternity, I suppose, and just the endless preoccupation. These were just some more shots that we did of the oxygen garden. We tried to, in fact, I think what we tried to do was actually just get more users to this amazing set. And, just to see it a few more times and for people to get accustomed to its beauty before it was destroyed. That was a CCTV shot, which we had a lot of CCTV around the ship in different times, and again, some of that we used and some we didn't use. And this was the cycle of growing, harvesting, and then eventually cooking the food, as you see later. Although this was lovely, which there's a tribute here to a little moment, a tribute to Alien, of course, which we had to get in. And we had a lot of fun with this. Michelle's propensity for washing these carrots was commented upon very enthusiastically by all the male members of the crew, of the film crew. But there's a lovely moment here where she pays we pay a tribute to Harry Dean Stanton, no less, and that famous and wonderful moment in Alien, really, which was we just had to get on with the film, really, so we left it out. It's one of the things I didn't mention on the DVD commentary throughout the whole film is how much preparation had to be done in terms of lighting. And Alvin Kuchler, the genius German cameraman, and how much prep he had to do to build, because virtually everything is lit real. I mean, it's not off-camera lights. It's all built in, like this scene. He had to prepare with Mark Tosley, our production designer, months in advance, where every light would be built into the set. And it was extraordinary achievement to do that. And it is beautifully lit, really. I think for any cinematographer, it's like a space film, really, for a director, it's a challenge, really, to come up to the standard that's kind of expected and more closely compared than almost any other genre, I think. Originally, this was to establish the voice of Icarus and to obviously establish the coolant that the hard drive of Icarus sits in, and that eventually becomes crucial to Mace's story. It was also to show how bored they are, really, and how they were just drifting, literally drifting through space. Chris Evans doing a great job of being asleep. Rose just kind of like lost in her book, which she'd just read from beginning to end, and then went back to the beginning again, and on it goes as they face this eternity of travel, really. And they dissipate, really. They're dissipating, if you like. Not quite sure what that is, actually. Oh, yes, it was used, originally that was used somewhere else, and we cut it into Benny's cooking scene, which we had to cut from the film because of time, really. But it was, and also because, really, the eating scene, when he serves out the food, it's clear that he's prepared it and cooked it. But this was the extended sequence where we connected the oxygen garden and the raising, the nurturing of the food, and then the gathering of it, and then the cooking of it. And we built it all together, really, and introduced the ship. But it would have been a 2-hour 20 movie, and if we'd left all this material in, so that was the reason that we cut it. Although there's some lovely stuff here for some lovely example. I expect Benny is a very good cook, really, because he certainly didn't need any help in any of the preparation here. All the sizzling and the floating camera and that kind of sense of just kind of nothing's rushed, nothing. It's at odds really with a modern kind of mainstream feature film where these days you have to get on so much. But the rhythm, the language of this kind of film early on is to suggest just time on their hands, really, I guess. And then we go to them waking up. We had this scenario where they would take shifts really to man the crew, and that Harvey has been he's on the night shift. It's quite interesting. Another thing that was said by NASA is that they would still very much try to keep astronauts on human rhythm time, and they do that even in the space station, I believe, even though they have something like 12 dawns and sunsets as they go around the Earth. It's so inbuilt into our DNA, the rhythm of the sunlight coming once a day and then disappearing once a night, that they would try to keep to that rhythm. And he would be, in this case, he's working the night shift. And we had those lovely, we never got to use those, we had those lovely glass doors which are coming supposedly, and people will have in their windows quite soon, where an electrical charge is turned off and they become clear, and then it's when it's turned on again they become opaque. This is a lovely beginning to the destruction of the oxygen garden. And again, Tilsley, the production designer, working with very little money really, did an amazing job. Kind of just distressing this, really. And it had, I think, a wonderful impact on her character, really. But she's such a good actress that you get it, even without this material, you get it just from a wide shot of her in the eating room once it's been destroyed and someone says the oxygen, and Harvey says the oxygen garden is completely destroyed. And you just see her and you know that she's destroyed as well. And her heart is moving on, really, to a kind of very cold focus on completion of the mission, regardless of anything else. This actually wasn't Cliff. We got a double to do these couple of things because Cliff had to sadly go back to New Zealand to care to his father was very ill and he had to go back, and sadly he died. So that guy was an extra that we used after Cliff had gone. But this leads to the sequence that we eventually replaced him with roles for the discussion with Capa. And this gives you a little glimpse of how you do the top of the bomb, which is that you take a small section of it, which is what he's walking across. Everything else is surrounded by green screen, and they repeat the pattern really into the green screen. And he just keeps walking, and then you'll see, I think Cliff tries to keep walking here at the end. Oh no, we cut off it. But he kept walking at the end so that the CG people can literally lift him and keep him walking, apparently walking. And then we're onto real sets, which we tried to have them there. And he goes into the scene just as Rose did, as you've seen in the film, in the movie. He's replaced by Rose in this sequence. Again, that's his double there, because he'd already left for that little moment. Cliff had already gone home.
So, guess we're not going home. How do you feel about that?
Do you mean?
And it's very much it's a slightly different, it's not as warm a scene really it's very much they test each other, and Capa declares his, what his vision is, what his preoccupation is.
Searle, you're going around to all of us, doing a quick psych test, an assessment, finding out if any of us are going to lose our shit. You know how they feel.
You're first on the list.
It also carries on.
The truth?
A small, as you'll see by the end of the scene, there's a small detail that's used that we tried to carry through the film, but didn't really work.
Dark matter of equal mass to the moon.
Which is a kind of memory of the captain. He has a chess piece with him, which you'll see at the end of the scene, and it's there. And some of it's incomplete, obviously.
Within this space at our command.
And the chess piece was eventually taken by, you can see the crew standing around casually there on the right. That's what the actors have to put up with.
And those will split again.
And he took that chess piece eventually into the furnace at the end of the film as a kind of memory of the captain. But I'll tell you one thing that's very interesting is that in movies, is that once you're dead, you're dead. Nobody really remembers you in films. It's very cruel. It's why actors don't want to play parts where they die too early sometimes, because they just say, you know, it's real time. People experience films in real time. It's not like a novel where you can go back and think about a character. Once you're dead, really. And it's all about, movies are all about forward momentum, really, and the characters carrying on. You know, unless you come back as a ghost, obviously, which is different. But when you come back as a symbol, like here, we decided really that's not going to be as important as an ongoing relationship with Cassie, which is what replaces this whole sequence. This is just a scene that got cut. It's a shame, really. It contains actually one of my favourite lines from the script, which Rolls has
Food ready if you want it.
in reply to this question of Capa.
How is he?
In deeper space than we are.
Yeah, I always thought that was one of the best lines in the script. But of course, they always say you should cut your favourite lines, or that wasn't the reason we cut the scene, though.
It wasn't him that made the mistake, Cassie. It was me.
We just felt we didn't. It was one of those scenes, really, that is beautiful to read and very nice for the actors to play. We didn't really need when we got to it in the momentum of the narrative.
Kaneda was the captain. He made the mistake. Anyway, it's done now.
And it is done now, and you have to get on. And that's one of the disciplines of this kind of film, really, is that it's forward momentum. It's one of the things I've learned over the various films I've made, is that it's not really about reminiscing, it's always about forward momentum.
Hey, Cassie, you reading what I'm reading?
This is very simple, a much more protracted
She's not deteriorating at all.
docking
She'll circle like this till the end of time.
of the ships, which was a bit more extensive, really, as you'll see here. In fact, it's very interesting. There is no such thing as an orbit, a perpetual orbit. All orbits are declining, really, as you get pulled in by gravity towards the planet, or towards, in this case, the sun. And you have to maintain your orbit by pushing away, by forcing away occasionally. So that's just one of the things we discovered about it. You know, one of the things that you bump into. There was a nice bit of sexual politics there between the the girls who were left to pilot the ship and the guys who were off on the adventure, really, I guess. But it was nicely noted there. This is just slightly later on in the same sequence, really, as they begin to dock, and it's a nicely played moment between these two guys where Mace observes what's happening to the psych officer.
Skin's peeling off his face, the fact that he's going blind. I'll drop it.
Look, I'm going in there, he's going in there, and so are you. It's a direct order.
Yes, Captain.
We just thought by that time, really, you want to get on. We want to get on with having set up the signal, and that their decision to join the other ship and trying to use its bomb and its oxygen, that we wanted to get there. You need to get there as soon as possible, really. So, again, some of this beautiful CG work had already been done, and we weren't able to use, unfortunately, which is a shame, really. But we used other bits of it in the main film. And I should have said, really, when I said in the DVD commentary that we were going to use the image of the Zeebrugge, which was a ferry that capsized and was turned on its side. And I should have referred to that earlier. I did mention it, although I'm sure not many people remember or know abroad, for instance, what that disaster was. But that was what the image that we were going to use of a ship turned on its side.
Good. Hold on. Mike's got his paintwork.
Still closing too fast.
30 meters. 20 meters.
Brace for impact, guys. Brace. Brace.
This is an element, a combination of CG and some model shoots. There, as you saw in the ships joining, and obviously live action, and actors being flung about in their chairs, which is how you do those impact moments. You have to have a very butch guy right at the bottom of the seat, shaking it like Billy-O to make a move about.
Contact failed. Computer system of Icarus 1 is non-functioning. Reasons unknown.
Atmosphere?
Oxygen rich, fully breathable, and life support.
So you can see that the CCTV had already been done by the CG people, and very nice it was too. And we caught all that, and we went straight to them opening the ship.
You heard her. It's breathable.
Beautiful costumes, these black costumes by Sutter Al-Alarm. Even though there was no light, she knew it was going to be the dust would be grey, and she created these beautiful black outfits. This is very early. This is early previs, beautifully done by a guy called Sean, who did all of our previs, and is a genius guy. And he's done a lot of the CG work on 28 Weeks Later, actually, if you're interested in that kind of stuff. Very, very interesting. Very special guy to work with. Very useful. Again, like a mini director working with you. And not so mini, actually. Okay, this is an alternative version of the final scene with Pinbacker, which is a more conversational scene, really, where we wanted to see what would happen if we stopped and took more time to reflect on Pinbacker. It's unfinished, and I've got to say, when you see it without the sound, it just tells you how important the sound is. Without it, we're all stark naked and vulnerable. And it's a tribute to the guys we work with, led by a guy called Glenn Fremantle, who does an extraordinary work on our sound. But I've got to pay tribute to Mark Strong here, who's a wonderful actor and who put up with the most appalling conditions for working. And his patience and his focus on the integrity of the character, given how extreme the character was, is a credit to him, really. He's a very, very fine actor, and you'll see him in many, many things. He'll become, for me, he's a very, very tall Anthony Hopkins. And you'll get to know him, I think, on that level in his future career. Again, this is previs of the some early stages of previs, as we imagine Pinbacker actually being, eventually, as the sun bursts into the chamber he's in, as the ship really disintegrates around him, we imagine him being eviscerated by that which he has become, he's fanatically dedicated to. And there's various different versions of this. Some of this material is here. Now, all of it's unfinished, really, because we changed it quite early on. After we shot it, we decided not to use this. And that he was meant to be surrounded by light. And there's a moment of absolute horror for him, really, when he is eaten by the sun, I suppose. And we also had Cassie's death there, actually. She had a separate death there at one point. So there's many kind of different shots that we did before we eventually arrived at what we were all happiest with, which is what you see in the main film. So what you see here is an original ending of the film, which we shot on mini DV tape. We shot very cheaply in order to show to Fox, to Peter Rice at Fox, what we wanted to do with the end of the film. And it's a tryout to the idea for Fox, and it features a wonderful actress called Paloma Beza. And she's the woman who introduced us to Cillian Murphy. But we did a test ending in a park very near the studio, in Victoria Park, in the East End, near where I live and where I go running, actually. So if you want to meet me, come running around this park. And I'm often to be found charging around there. And yeah, here it is.